right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that was honestly the talk of the town just a few years ago. We're talking about Facebook's, or should I say, Meta's, grand vision for the metaverse. It feels like yesterday we were hearing about this revolutionary new world, and now, well, it seems like the hype has largely faded, and it definitely didn't take off the way they hoped. Joining me to dissect all of this is John, who actually works as a metaverse developer. John, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Zia. It's a fascinating subject, especially from my perspective working in the trenches. From the inside. It felt like we were on the cusp of something truly monumental. But looking back, there were so many red flags, even amidst all the enthusiasm.
Absolutely. I remember Zuckerberg's big reveal, the name change to Meta, the billions of dollars being poured into it. It was like a sci fi movie suddenly becoming a corporate strategy. What do you think was the core promise, or rather, the core misunderstanding from the get go?
I think the core promise was compelling, a persistent, interconnected virtual world where you could work, socialize, play, and create, all seamlessly. The misunderstanding, though, was in the how and when. They presented it as an almost immediate future, a natural evolution of the internet. But the underlying technology, and perhaps more importantly, user behavior, just wasn't ready to make that leap. It was like trying to build a highway for self driving cars before the cars themselves were truly ready, or before people even really understood why they needed self driving cars to begin with.
That's a great analogy. From a consumer standpoint, it often felt like, what problem is this solving? I mean, we have Zoom for work, social media for connecting, games for entertainment. Was there a compelling killer app or use case that truly justified the massive investment and the shift in how we interact with technology?
Honestly, not a single one that resonated broadly enough. We saw a lot of experimentation. There were virtual meeting rooms, which, let's be real, often felt clunky compared to a simple video call. There were social spaces, but they lacked the organic, spontaneous feel of real world interactions or even the ease of text based social media. And gaming, while a natural fit for VR, already had its own vibrant ecosystems. The metaverse didn't offer a unified, superior experience across these domains. It often offered a more complicated, less accessible one.
And speaking of accessible, the hardware was a huge barrier, right? The headsets were expensive, often cumbersome, and required a certain level of technical comfort to even set up. It wasn't just plug and play like a smartphone or a laptop.
Absolutely. The barrier to entry was massive. You needed a relatively high end VR headset, which could cost hundreds of dollars. Then you needed the space to move around, potentially a powerful PC depending on the experience, and a stable internet connection. Compare that to pulling out your phone and instantly browsing Instagram. It's night and day. For a truly mass market product, that kind of friction is a non starter. They wanted billions of users, but only millions could realistically access it comfortably, if that.
So it was a classic case of build it and they will come, but they couldn't afford it or didn't see the point. What about the actual developer experience, John? From your side, were there technical limitations or challenges that made building this grand vision particularly difficult?
Oh, many. Performance was a constant battle. Rendering complex 3D environments, supporting hundreds of simultaneous users, ensuring low latency for interactions. It's incredibly demanding on hardware and network infrastructure. We were pushing the limits of current technology. Then there was the interoperability challenge. The idea was a single interconnected metaverse, but in reality, each experience was its own silo. Getting avatars, items, or even identities to seamlessly transfer between different virtual spaces was a monumental unsolved problem. It's like having 100 different internets that can't talk to each other.
That's a huge point. The interconnected part of the vision seemed to get lost in the execution, and it sounds like the technology itself was just not mature enough. It felt like they were trying to skip a few evolutionary steps rather than letting the tech naturally progress.
Exactly. We're still in the early days of genuinely good VR and AR experiences. We need higher resolution displays, wider fields of view, better tracking, and most importantly, much lighter, more comfortable form factors. Imagine trying to get everyone to adopt the internet when it required a room sized computer and dial up speeds for every interaction. That's essentially where we were with the metaverse. They were trying to force a future that wasn't quite ready to be born, hoping that throwing enough money at it would accelerate the impossible.
And the cost, my goodness, billions, truly mind boggling sums poured into reality labs. That kind of expenditure with such little visible return must have put immense pressure on the project, right?
The pressure was immense. Every quarter, the financial reports would highlight the losses, and that trickled down to every team. There was a constant push for wins, for things that could show progress and justify the investment. But when you're building foundational technology, those wins aren't always immediate or flashy. It led to a lot of pivoting, a lot of trying to quickly roll out features that might not have been fully baked, just to demonstrate movement.
So it became a bit of a hamster wheel, trying to prove value before the value was truly there to be proven. And what about the brand perception? Facebook changing its name to Meta, tying its entire future to this vision. Do you think that was a wise move, or did it actually amplify the perceived failure when things didn't go as planned?
I think it was a double edged sword. On one hand, it showed an unparalleled commitment. It sent a clear message that this wasn't just a side project, it was the future of the company. That kind of conviction can inspire. But on the other hand, it also placed an enormous burden on the concept itself. Metaverse became synonymous with meta, and when the public perceived the metaverse as failing or being underwhelming, it directly impacted Meta's image. It became less about a broad technological evolution and more about Meta's expensive flop.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people had existing baggage with Facebook too, given all the privacy concerns and controversies. Was there a sense that people were hesitant to fully embrace Meta's version of the metaverse because of those past issues?
Oh, absolutely. That was a huge underlying current. The idea of Meta owning such a deeply immersive, persistent digital identity was a major red flag for many. Given their track record with data and privacy, the thought of them having access to even more intimate data, like how you move, where you look, your emotional responses in VR, was unsettling for a lot of potential users. Trust is paramount, and Meta had a significant deficit there, which the metaverse only exacerbated for some.
It makes sense. If you're going to put your entire digital self into a virtual world, you want to trust the architects of that world implicitly, and that trust wasn't readily available for many. So, looking back, if you had to pinpoint the top two or three reasons why it didn't succeed, what would they be?
I'd say, firstly, immature technology and high barrier to entry. The hardware wasn't ready for mass adoption, and the software ecosystem was fragmented and underdeveloped. Secondly, lack of a compelling value proposition. There wasn't a clear, universally understood why for the average person to spend their time and money in this new world. And thirdly, trust and brand perception. The baggage from Facebook's past, combined with privacy concerns around immersive tech, created a significant hurdle for user adoption.
Those are solid points, John. It really felt like a solution searching for a problem, or perhaps a vision that was just decades ahead of its time. But is the idea of the metaverse truly dead, or is it just this particular iteration, Meta's iteration, that failed?
Oh, the idea is definitely not dead. Not at all. What Meta attempted was a monolithic proprietary metaverse. That was one of its core flaws. The true vision of a metaverse is a decentralized, open, interoperable network of virtual worlds and experiences. What we saw was a preview of what's possible, but also a clear demonstration of what doesn't work. We're going to see future iterations, absolutely. Companies are still investing in VR and AR, but the approach will likely be much more focused, solving specific problems and building out from there, rather than trying to create an entire parallel universe overnight.
So perhaps more incremental growth rather than a big bang approach, more like the internet evolving over decades, piece by piece, rather than someone trying to launch the internet as a single product.
Precisely. Think about how the internet really took off. It wasn't one company building the internet. It was email, then websites, then e commerce, then social media, each building upon the last, often with open protocols. That organic, distributed growth is far more resilient and adaptable than a single corporate entity trying to dictate the future of digital interaction.
That's a fantastic point. And I suppose the lessons learned from Meta's experience, expensive as they were, will be invaluable for those future attempts. What do you think developers in your field are focusing on now, given these insights?
A big focus is on making VR AR experiences truly useful and comfortable for everyday tasks, not just grand visions. We're looking at things like better augmented reality applications for practical purposes. Imagine real time translation overlays or interactive guides for repairs. We're also seeing a lot of work on smaller, more specific social VR experiences that don't try to be everything to everyone. And critically, much more emphasis on ethical design and user privacy from the ground up, not as an afterthought.
That makes so much sense. Focusing on utility and solving genuine problems rather than creating a whole new paradigm that people aren't asking for yet. It reminds me a bit of the early days of smartphones. They didn't start with augmented reality everywhere. They started with better communication, simple apps, and then gradually built up features.
Exactly. Evolutionary, not revolutionary. And even then, it took years for smartphones to become truly ubiquitous. Immersive tech will likely follow a similar, perhaps even longer path. We're laying the groundwork, building the infrastructure, improving the tools. The dream of interconnected virtual worlds is still alive, but it's going to be a gradual realization, driven by practical applications and user needs, not just top down corporate mandates.
So, patience is key, and perhaps humility from the companies driving this technology. Don't promise the world tomorrow if the technology can only deliver a slightly better virtual meeting room today. Fascinating insights, John. It's clear that while the initial metaverse vision might have stumbled, the underlying technology and the potential for immersive experiences are still very much alive, just needing a more thoughtful, user centric approach.
That's it, Zia. The future of immersive tech will be built on solving real problems, enhancing existing experiences, and most importantly, earning user trust one step at a time. It's a long road, but a very exciting one.
Well, John, this has been incredibly enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and perspective as a developer on why Facebook's Metaverse program faced the challenges it did and what we might expect next. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.